Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You're listening to a new episode of Off the Record, a student abroad podcast, where your host, Saman Fatima, will cover the lengths of what it means to be a student and faculty. Saman and her guests will explore how, why, and what students, especially international students, face when they move abroad to complete their undergrad, master's, or PhD. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of Off the Record with me, Saman. And this episode is really special to me because so far we've been doing a lot of students who have been here doing their masters, graduated, and then working or maybe searching for a job or yet to be graduated. But this one is with a student who has taken that liberty to be part of this episode and share about his doctorate journey and how those many years with an amazing university. And I have been after him for a couple of weeks now and getting him right on the brink. So welcome, Kushal. And I'm really glad for you to be here after all that busy schedules, and we could actually make it up today in different time zones actually. So it's like LA and Dallas coming up together. So welcome, and I would really want you to introduce yourself to everyone here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great work that you're doing here. I'm Kushal Chawla, fifth year PhD student. I can now say final year PhD student at USC, computer science. And I have spent 5 years in the States for my PhD, moved here 2019. And I grew up in India, where I went to IIT Guwahati for my undergrad, and then spent a couple of years in corporate. I was working in Bangalore, Adobe, and that's when I thought that, okay, I want to leave all this and go to US for my PhD. I can talk more about why I did that, but I guess we will touch upon that throughout this session. But yeah, it's been fun, and I just defended last month, and just looking forward to the next phase in my life. I'll be moving to New York City after this, so excited for that.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And I really wanted to congratulate because 5 years is really a great time. Spending 1 year at my master's was a lot. I'll say it very openly now, but yeah, 5 years, like spending that much time is a lot.
Yeah, so you have to pace it well. So I always say that you need to take it as a kind of job that pays less. If you still think yourself as a student that same energy, I don't think it's obviously subjective, but for me, that same internship level or a master level energy is just not scalable for 5 years. So I had to learn how to pace it well.
Yeah. I'll take notes during this podcast. Like I had that, I still have it though, but after my master's, I just put it into the back seat that I still wanted to do my doctorate. But I still have to muster up a lot of courage to spend these many years and, as patient as possible and then get that load in front of your name. So yeah, we will be discussing all of that in anyone who is planning to do their PhD here in the United States. And, I just am free to say and want to ask here before we move on to the major set of the questions that we want to discuss here, that why not masters and why just went for the PhD would be my first question here.
Yeah, sure. So I actually, this was at the core of my decision. I actually got two admits, one for PhD and one for masters, and that was at CMU, CMU LTI. It was kind of like a more research focused masters in itself, but still a master's. You have to apply for a PhD right again after 2 years. It's still not sorted. So and I had to. So mostly I wanted to do a PhD because I was working with senior researchers who have already done their PhDs and then moved back to India, Adobe at Adobe, and I was working with them. It's kind of I liked the way they approached the problem somehow. Like it's you can see the difference, and one way was that I could see that, okay, they have done all that training and then they are doing all this. So I need all that. And also, I was interested in doing research. I was involved with that. PhD kind of gives you that environment. Finally, one more thing that comes to mind is industry kind of, if you want to do research. I was already in a research lab at Adobe in India, and I was doing those research projects. But I can talk more about it later on, but it comes with some additional responsibilities. You need to kind of defend how your work is good for the company and all that, kind of a mix of product and research. And at that point, I just did not want to do that. I wanted to focus more on the research, and academia seemed like a better place to do that. So PhD made sense at that age, but I have always been inclined towards going back to the industry. My internships have been in the industry, and now joining the industry again as a full time.
Those are all really fair points. And coming back to the section, like, I or anybody, coming or deciding for any of their graduate degrees or doctorate degrees, and if we had that option of taking up a course at USC,
Yeah.
Everyone would just go by the blink of the eye that, okay, that's like the best and best of the best, like, you get the best out of there. So what was your formula of choosing USC and that particular course and the curriculum and everything, and how it did helped you all through
Yeah.
years?
Yeah. As far as choosing the curriculum or choosing the specific computer science program at USC is considered, I can cook up some good answer that, hey, high overlap with my interests and everything made sense. I talked to the professors and stuff, but that's not how it works essentially. So you apply to a whole range of universities. And you try to have a good diversity, ambitious, and also, and you find any kind of place which has some overlap with what you're doing, even if not a high overlap. And then universities come back. In this case, I had two options, and I can we talk more about that decision. USC also gave a fellowship, so that comes with a little bit more money and a little bit more freedom than the standard RA or TA positions. Let me know if you want to talk more about that. But and so that decision between doing a PhD at USC, which gives you all these options. I talked to the professors, of course, had an interview, and that went well. They were very supportive, felt good. I actually was in 2019 in February, before joining USC, they gave me an admit, and I was just visiting US. Adobe sent me for some conference, and by that time the in admit had come in. So I actually visited Los Angeles and spent one day at USC. Usually they have visit days for PhD students, but I could not come during that day. But I had a private visit day, I guess you can say, and it was very nice to meet the team. So and the lab group. So that was good, and so I chose this instead of a master's that would lead up to a PhD later on, that may or may not. And I've seen cases where that can also be stressful because it's not guaranteed. If you know, the advice that I got at that point was, if you know that you want to do a PhD, just go for it directly. And there are always like options of mastering out later on. I can talk more if that's of interest.
Yeah. So I know, like, you mentioned about the TA and RA thing, the fellowship side. So if you want to elaborate more on that end, because that helped you choose this one. So
yeah,
we wanted to know more. What was your perspective?
Sure. So there are three kinds of ways in which you can get funded as a PhD student, standard ways, I guess. One is research assistantship, RA-ship, and that's where your advisor's lab group is paying for your stipend. So the stipend is more or less the same between these three categories. For fellowship, it's a bit higher, but the difference is what's the source of that money. So in an RA-ship, your lab and your advisor they pay for it. They have got funding grants from some other institutes like NSF or DARPA, and they would be paying for the money. For TA-ship, that's a teaching, you're acting as a teaching assistant, you will be helping out with a professor to conduct a course, maybe take office hours and create those exams and then also check those exams and stuff like that, or maybe take lectures. And in those cases, the university pays you the stipend because you're helping conduct these courses. And the third is fellowship, which also comes, in my case, comes from different sources, but in my case came from the school itself. A different department is called Annenberg Fellowship, so it came from some communication department, and so it kind of comes with a little bit more money than RA and TA, and also some more freedom because you are not being paid by your advisor. You can choose to, if things don't work out between you two for the first year or so, you can choose to change advisors because you're just like being paid guaranteed payment from the school rather than the advisor. So you can move around a lot. There's more freedom. I did not do that, but if things are not going that well and you decide to move around, you can. It's easier on a fellowship. Those are three options.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get to like choose between the three options, or is it like depending on your profile, depending on how your entire package, has been selected as part of the university, they give you automatically, like just wanting to know that.
Right. Good question. So for a subset of students, when they admit the students, for a subset of them, they offer fellowships that, okay, you look like a good candidate, and we would also offer you fellowship and give you some of the freedom that comes with it. And usually we have mandatory, again, this can vary from school to school, but at USC, we have mandatory 2 semesters of TA-ship. So I have to be a TA that's a part of my PhD requirement. I have to be a TA for at least 2 semesters. And so it's ultimately, TA-ship can be a lot of work. So you want to, if you're not on a fellowship, I think in my case as well, the money that came up with like the higher amount of sum remained fixed for the next 4 years or so. But the freedom part, the source of the money, when I said that the source is school, that's only for first year. So the school kind of only covers the difference from the second year. So, but usually you want to be on RA-ship or fellowship as much as you can, because that potentially comes with lesser additional jobs, and that can also depend on what kind of funding source your lab goes for. So some variations over there as well. But in my case, I was extremely lucky. As an RA-ship, a lab was kind of well funded. In COVID, the funding was tricky. So once my advisors asked me that, hey, can you do a TA-ship for the next semester so that the school pays while they're trying to get more funding? And so this is like a conversation with the advisors, but I had to do it anyway. Like at least 2 semesters I have to do anyway. So it kind of worked out. But apart from all that, you would want to be on RA-ship. In my case, RA-ship came with no additional responsibilities. That depends on the funding source.
Yeah.
I could just focus on my research. But in some cases, RA-ship can come with additional software engineering work. They're trying to like compete in some competitions, and so that the funding continues in the future. So it depends on where you are, basically.
Okay. So just wanting to like clear the air here. So, like a few set of folks get that fellowship initially with their, like when they get the offer letter. But, for example, like you said that you have to work as a TA for the first 2 semesters. So is it like easy for you to have that switch towards RA? Like, is it that easy with USC that you can apply to different departments under different professors, reach out to them and get that RA-ship? And also, for that matter, if you're working under one department, like you're tagged under one department, can you still be an RA for a different professor under a different department? Like, is that any, like, do you have anything around this? If not, then also it's fine.
Yeah. First of all, one clarification. You don't have to be the TA for first 2 semesters. You need to, from the PhD requirements perspective, you need to be a TA for at least 2 semesters throughout your PhD. It usually you get when you get hired as a PhD student, you there is some advisor who wants to take you, and they plan out their funding. They say that, okay, I have funding for 2 students, and but I so if I like 3 students for one of them, I can say that, okay, let's try for fellowship for this guy because I can only fund 2 on my RShip funds. But usually advisors plan that out and they hire students in such a way that they can like fund them through RShip. That's how it works. And it doesn't seem that possible that, hey, if I'm part of this department but get funded from somebody else, they have their own students to fund. So that seems not seems tricky. But there are like co-advising situations happening all the time. Even I am co-advised. I was like, I have 2 advisors, but they are in the same lab. But it's possible for people to be co-advised for from like 2 advisors in different lab groups, and maybe they manage their funding together. I don't know how that works, but it's possible that they both fund that guy. And also, it's in some cases, I think they also have like a primary advisor who funds them, and then the secondary advisor kind of um, like
Got it, got it. So it's like you have to be lucky to land up under the department or the advisor which are being funded well, like all through it, or you switch it up as a TA in that course so that at least till the time they manage the funding, you still get paid under the college.
Yeah. I mean, I would not say lucky because these are the only ways you would get the admission. So if every advisor would have their own budget, from what I know, that, hey, I can fund 2 students, and so okay, I'm giving admits to these 2 guys or something, these 2 folks, something like that. So these are the only 2 ways. But and in when you've joined in the future, you can or like it's possible that the advisor kind of hires a student because the advisor expects that they would get money from the next year, so they want the student to do TA-ship from the first year. I think all sorts of variations are possible, but the kids need to do 2 TA-ships, and in most of the cases it's a conversation between where your between your advisor and yourself, like where your research is. Like, do you want to like stop working on your, like, giving less time to your research in the next semester and spend that time on TA-ship? Is this a good time or not? But you have to do at least 2. But if there are like funding issues in the lab, then professors often like ask their students to maybe go for more TA-ships, so that it just gives some buffer to get additional funds in the lab. Yeah.
That's fair, and that's helpful as well for both the parties actually. And
Yeah.
that's helpful to know more about what are the different sections that you can be getting those things and how you can work alongside. So
Yeah.
okay, getting back to your main application process. So when you started up with your application process with USC for this particular course, so if you can walk us through, like, what were the requirements at the time of your application process? Like, we know it's like SOPs, LORs, but how does it differs when it is for a PhD course? Like, what all did you give up back in 2019 when you were applying in USC?
What do you mean by gave up?
Like, gave up as in like for example, I'll just rephrase, were there any LORs that were required? Obviously SOPs has to go, any sort of test scores, any sort of video interviews, any sort of essays to be submitted, something of that sort.
Yeah, I mean, all of that you mentioned actually, but I know that after like I had GRE, TOEFL, and everything with SOP, and you actually go down and look at the some professors who have overlap with you. So you need to mention that, hey, I've done this work, and then these are the 3 or 4 professors that have a good overlap with me. And so from the university's perspective, they kind of I think in some cases, they also have like a literal field on the form that where you mention that hey, these are the three professors I'm interested in, and they redirect your application to those professors, and then they can take a call whether uh, rejecting or accepting or asking you for an interview. In most cases, they do some sort of interviews with the students. So yeah, you just look at the kind of overlap that you have, research work that is happening, and then you apply based on that. But just to say, this is very old information. I want to say this is very old information. 2019, COVID happened, right? Lots of many things have changed. Don't rely on this.
But by far, like, do you know, like, by any chance, if you know at least the range, like what sort of range they need as part of GRE or TOEFL that they require when you apply for the PhD course?
I do not remember, but I think usually, from what I have learned all these years, these are more of like there's a minimum bar which they would care about. I don't know what the number is, but once that is met, I don't think any further score helps your case. It's, again, comes down to your overlap and what's the fit, how they think that your profile fits with what they want to do with the money
Yeah.
that they have. Yeah.
That's fair. And I guess probably since 2019, maybe things would have changed at USC with the scores and everything. So probably
Yeah.
a good fit would be to reach out on the website. Anyone who is watching it here to, go up to the website and see what for different programs they would need the test scores for.
Yeah.
Moving ahead, like you mentioned, like there were a couple of instances where you, if by any chance input any professor's name, that you and him or her have an overlap with the work. So, had you gone through any video interviews or anything of that sort?
Yeah. So I at USC, um, I had a video just like this, like a virtual interview with my professor, and I was in fact her first PhD student. So she kind of grilled me on who I am, where I come from, my background and stuff, and she seemed interested. So she mentioned that we are trying to apply for a fellowship for you as well at USC. And so yeah, so there was an interview, and then when I came to US, I met all of them in person. So I had so that day involved some guided tours from current students on campus. That hey, this is what we have on campus at USC. It's very nice, and then some lunch and meetings and sessions with the existing with the current PhD students at that point and advisors as well. Yeah, so it kind of an interview. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess, getting to know who is coming
Yeah.
and is working under you and knowing more about the uh, projects that they have done in the
Yeah.
past and, matching up with the wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's completely.
In just want to add, the in-person visit was after getting the admit.
Yeah.
So in-person visit is mostly for the student that hey,
Mhm.
this looks like a good space for yourself. They don't like grill you that much in person. They're just trying to know you, I guess. Yeah. So it's
And
post.
it's anyways, you have to spend like many years under them. So it's better to be friends and, have that healthy relationship rather than grilling would not work for another 4-5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a longer commitment than a master's, right? So
Yeah.
apart from just the work, or overlap, lab environment matters a lot, I think, and how supportive they are. These are like these two, like I was co-advised, as I mentioned. These two guys um, were like academic parents, and so it was very very nice, always very cooperative. And I can give instances where they were actually super cooperative and helpful when I was struggling with something. And then yeah, so I mean, even the students as well seemed very helpful. So along with like lab environment, I think even stuff like which city it is matters, because like you're there, it's 5 years of your life you would
So
want
how
to
was
do.
your city experience? Just going off the roads now. Just how, because this is like one thing, like when we prep up for our degree programs and when we move to a different country, one thing that we go about is what we talked about, the curriculum and the process and everything. Obviously, we'd
Yeah,
know more about the, the aids and finances shortly. But
yeah,
the next thing that we go about is, okay, what city is the college in? Like, how welcoming the city is, how it's open to job opportunities, and LA seems to be really fun. So, what was your perspective there?
yeah, yeah. LA is a great place to be, a very good choice, like city-wise. I mean, I think compared to the other option that I had, Pittsburgh, I think I made a good decision on that part. Uh,
Totally, totally.
weather-wise, amazing. But overall, of course, California is great, but it can be very overwhelming in the beginning because you have so much to figure out. I think every student
Yeah,
might have said the same thing. And even for you, I guess, I don't know, but it can be like extremely overwhelming. So you don't worry about the city aspect, but just try to like set things up early on. Bank account, there's so much to figure out. And then everybody, like whatever you do, there's always a better thing that somebody comes out, oh, you should have
yeah,
done this. I mean, come
it's
on.
always there.
How would I know? How would I know? Like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
because
Just credit card.
you just refer to one person when you come here, like, or maybe a set of people, and then, for example, if those six people have
Yeah,
opened a bank account in this bank, so like you'd be the seventh one opening it, and then the eighth one running down. No, they have some other
yeah.
offers. So that's there. That's prevalent, and that will go on for years now, I guess.
Credit card or that credit card, and then,
Yeah.
oh, you need to build your credit history in this country. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, I've just
We
come in.
haven't, like, I don't know about you, but I haven't done those things. Like, I haven't looked upon my, the credit reports and everything back in India, because it wasn't a thing. Like,
Yeah,
your credit report never was checked as part of getting you a place. But here it is. You have to
yeah,
maintain that to have
yeah.
that
It's
luxury. So,
kind of crazy. Yeah, so a lot to know. So you kind of forget about the city and just try to settle in. But then when it was actually time to enjoy the city, COVID happened. This was kind of a weird PhD of sorts. A PhD comes up with amazing opportunities to travel the world,
yeah,
where you're just presenting your stuff in conferences, and instead of traveling the world, that all everything became virtual for 2 years. That was a mess. So I traveled a lot, like in my later years, last year,
that's great.
um, when I got the chance. But in general, we used to hike around a lot. LA gives you that
Yeah,
opportunity
like West
during
Coast is
COVID.
full of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that you can do. My roommate was the one who knew how to drive. I never drove in India, and you need to drive in LA to kind of go move around
Mhm.
beyond the university. And so hiking was one thing that you could do. But then my roommate, actually, anecdote, he got kind of was getting married, and his fiance was in Seattle. So he used to like go to the airport often, and cabs were getting very expensive. And they were like because of COVID and stuff. And so he taught me how to drive so that I can carry him to the airport and
That's
stuff.
amazing.
And
And that's one great thing that you need to learn here. Like, it's a
yeah,
do and die thing. Like, one day you will come back to your cab prices, that okay, let's just put it aside and let's just learn instead and get it done and have it on my own.
yeah. And I am like still I can't be more thankful for the gift to him. I love driving, and I turned out I really love driving. I can't imagine not driving in my life, and I'm moving to New York City, so that's a big decision. Uh,
Where
it
would
was
you
very
drive
difficult.
that, Kushal?
I won't be like I want to drive every day to work. That's not gonna happen in NYC.
In
Uh,
NYC. Yeah, that's what my question was. Like, where would you drive in NYC?
Yeah, I have to rent out. When I got an offer from Capital One, I was trying to like like see whether it makes sense or not. I was actually checking if they have rental car benefits just just to see whether I should join the company. I still
That's amazing.
know if
So
they do.
yeah.
But yeah, but the city life was I could enjoy it once I got the car. I had a car for 1.5 years here, and it was
That's
amazing.
perfect. Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the major questionnaire, and we had like a good discussion on the car thing, but let's see how you get that love for driving back in New York City. So I would really catch up on that one. So yeah, the one thing that I wanted to ask here is because you did your undergrad and then worked up in India and had that experience into the industry as well, and then you decided to move for your PhD. So anything that you wanted to talk about that you prepped up at that time, like back in 2019, that you think that those were a couple of preps that I did before coming for my doctorate? So anything of that sort you wanted to share?
Um, uh, Preparation wise, nothing specific comes to mind, but I mean, it's mostly the advice that you get from senior folks, that how they managed at Adobe. In my team itself, there were so many senior researchers who actually did their PhDs in US, and so I had I arranged separate one-on-ones with all of them, that hey, what advice do you have for me, PhD, and how do you think I should plan out my 5 years? But then, like, the best advice that I got was just go there and see. I mean, everyone's journey is so different. You will have your own issues when you reach here, and you will have to figure out how to deal with them. And I actually did have unique issues which I had to deal with. And I can talk more whenever it's the right time.
That's fair. That's totally fair. We will be picking up on that as well.
Yeah.
And next big thing is, I know it's PhD. I know it's a longer duration of course, and there's division of coursework. Then you work on your thesis and
Yeah.
blah 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 that I may not know. But one thing that we would really want to know about is that what were the finances that were involved. I really don't want you to drill down much because I know it would not be the same as 2019 to what it is now, but
Uh-huh.
something on the ranges, if you can talk to us about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Um, so you just want to cover like the kind of stipend I was getting, and maybe how I was
Yeah,
spending the money
just the
daily.
ranges of them, not maybe
Okay,
the exact
cool.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were getting around $3,000 after tax in Los Angeles every month, and that has been it's been around that number all these years. And so I pay like 1,200 to 1,300 on rent. First year I was at USC housing, and I was paying like $100 lesser, but the house was very bad, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, very small and not good, for 1,200. And but then off from the next year, COVID happened, and USC came up um, with very strict requirements. Every morning you wake up, you need to fill out a form, how you're doing, all the checks and everything. If you're staying at USC housing, that was just everybody left. Nobody wanted to do that, and so I found off campus housing and staying with a couple other folks, 3 bedroom, 3 bath, and then I pay like 1,300 for that. And we moved around once, but it's been similar. And like you can get this is a nicer place, like bigger rooms and stuff, but you can of course go lesser. When most of the master's students I've seen, they often like share their rooms as well, so two people in one room, and that can actually bring it down to 600-700 per person. Um, but I didn't think that that was what I wanted to do for 5 years, so 1,300, and I would say $300 to $400 of $400 of living expenses, and then I would spend out a lot. So you can like save $1,000 I guess every month I was saving $1,000. Apart from everything, I never like paid anything out of pocket. That was actually so that's one of the things with PhDs, right? So no loans, anything. You're being paid to be here. Although if you do a master's, um, after 2 years you can get into the industry and maybe earn some money. So financially, you need to see. You need to. So one thing I often say that you need to really like what you're doing because you're not being paid for it. So if you don't like what you're doing, it just doesn't make sense. So if you're not even enjoying, you're not being paid for it, it doesn't make sense. And as a master, and during a PhD as well, there is an option of mastering out. There's a verb for it, where after 2 years or so, your course requirements, what you're doing for PhD, they are sufficient to give you like enough credits that you can just apply for a master's and get out of it. So then that would be a master's for free, I guess, right? Because you were being paid from day one to do your master's. So that is an option, and people do that. That's very common actually. And if things don't look good, I know friends who did that. They joined some lab environment and they didn't like it. They was very toxic, different school, but and they didn't like it, and so they thought it's just better to master out and then join a company. So that is an option. But of course, when you're applying, you need to have that research experience. It's probably easier to get into a master's than a PhD, of course, and it's more competitive. But if you get in, then you always have an option to master out if things are not working fine.
Right.
Um,
That's completely fair, and that's like the best part about the doctorate degrees is, you don't have to put anything out from your pockets. It's basically the work that you do is actually pays up for you. Like it should actually, because the only commitment that you have is the number of years. That's it that you're giving up.
yeah, yeah, but still, I would say like financially doesn't make uh, you're not here for the money. Like you're just being probably paid to you're not paying anything out of pocket, but you're not paid well compared to, let's say, the industry standards or what you would earn even in academia
Yeah.
later on. So there's a trade-off there. You need to figure it
Fair,
out.
yeah,
Right?
fair. That's completely fair. And I know there's no like fees or anything of that involved that you're actually paying to the university. It's something that the only university pays you. But
Yeah.
there like any scope of scholarships or any sort of financial aids that PhD students fall under?
Yeah.
Maybe not at the offer letter stage, but maybe
Yeah.
later, like after 2 years, you get hold of any
Yeah.
scholarship or anything of that sort.
Yeah, so there are possibilities for that. So one is stuff that university itself gives you. Just for example, in my case, I was an Annenberg Fellow. It comes with slightly more money, and but that was from USC, right? But you can apply for, and it's kind of encouraged because it's a good experience to sell out your stuff in a to a different person, and so every like I think for 2 or 3 years I have tried, and most of the opportunities which are worth applying are in the industry, and like all the Meta, Google, and all, they release their AI scholarships or fellowships. I think AI PhD fellowship, but it's quite competitive. So, but there are options like that. The max that I could do was I was a finalist for Meta in the last year. So that means that I got an email that, hey, congratulations, you're the finalist, but you have not won, but you are the finalist for Meta AI Fellowship. I was sad. Like, I mean, it doesn't come with any money. Who cares? And they were like, okay, we will put your name on a blog. Okay, good to have, but I would have liked some more money. But yeah, so there are some options, quite competitive, so you can't rely on that. But it does come with some more money, and of course, I think a bigger advantage is more networking. So often these come with opportunities to interact with the team. You can also like do internships with those teams and these companies, and they also give you free funds to travel for conferences and all that.
Nice.
So it comes with nice perks. So worth applying as an experience as well, but quite competitive.
Okay. like you mentioned, like from the initial time that you were part of couple of conferences as well that you traveled for, like any conferences, like any that stood out for you, like you want to talk about just one or two?
Sure. So my uh, so I have, I think, traveled in. The ones that stood out were so I think as far as the conference experience is considered, okay, they can be very similar to each other.
Yeah.
One that stood out as far as the conference
Mm-hmm.
experience again is
Yeah.
considered is one in ACL 2023, Association for Computation Linguistics 2023 in Toronto, Canada,
Oh, nice.
where
Traveled? Wow.
instead of presenting a paper,
Uh-huh.
I was a program chair for a workshop. So we organized a workshop where other people submitted their papers and we kind of did the whole review. So I was like organizing it for the past year. I got the sponsorship and funding. So it was like close to my heart and a new experience where you are on the other side of the table. So you get a lot more networking. I you interact with you invite those speakers and panels. You have panel sessions and you kind of
Yeah.
interact with those esteemed folks in the community as well.
And
So
that's
that was,
amazing. And then you head on to a different country and then you actually meet up, a lot of folks there, like-minded folks out there as well. And obviously,
yeah.
uh,
But
the
apart from that, just to mention that, just to complete, this was from the conference perspective. But as I said, conferences can be quite similar.
Mhm.
The thing that most stood out was from the country perspective. One conference was in Croatia, and I was in Dubrovnik, which was the place where they shot King's Landing in Game of Thrones. A very pretty city.
Yeah.
I had a I had a few days for Switzerland as well, my first trip to Europe. So that's the one that I would rank higher than the one where I organized a workshop. That was the peak of my career, but I would rank the other one higher. Yeah.
I agree. Like the experiences would be different because, you have PhD candidates and, at different levels from every country. So, you being part of USC and then traveling to maybe Canada or to, Croatia for that matter, and you get like a lot of more perspectives. And as you said, networking is key. You don't know where,
Yeah.
with whom, how things can actually,
Yeah,
go.
talking to people
Yes.
is, and early on as well, like my advisors. So I used to have some worries that, hey, whatever I'm working on, there's not a lot of community in that space at USC. And my advisors kind of um, mentioned that people find their community across the world during their PhD. You meet people even in other universities as well, and you might find people who have similar interests in other places as well. Nothing to worry about. And that's exactly what happened. Like I got in touch, and that has resulted in a number of additional collaborations with external universities throughout these 5 years. So very grateful for all the networking aspects. Yeah.
I agree because with all these years and with all these episodes that I've done, what I've heard, the maximum is, networking is the key here.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the next step to every good time. So it's best
Yeah.
that you have that networking capabilities. If not, try to have it as soon as possible because that works the best here. Like that
Mhm.
works the quickest
Yeah.
here, actually, in that matter. So, I know we've talked about a lot about your course, the scholarships, the different layers of how you can be part of the course, and the finances division, everything. So, I guess we have covered everything before, you get that offer letter and you move to the next stage of acquiring that US visa, that F1 visa you acquire to come here. So I know 2019 would not fetch a lot of experiences because things really went downhill with, a lot of lesser appointments and a lot of, people not getting it. So how was your experience back in 2019 with your visa? thing for
Um,
USC?
yeah, for me, it was kind of smooth. Nothing interesting to say there. My application went through, like you have to be proactive to start the things at a good time. And it also depends on when you get the admit. In my case, I got it very early, like January, February timeframe, so I could start the application in India. And I think it took a couple months, but I went to Chennai and I got the appointment easily. So it was smooth for me. The visa application was not an issue, but this is something that, like, even though that was smooth, this is what we've signed up for in our life, right? So gonna,
Yeah,
this is going to be the constant thing on our minds.
yeah.
So let's see. And very recently, when I was actually renewing my visa,
Okay.
um, in India. It was like 5 years over. I got the visa for 5 years, and
Mm.
that's probably mostly enough. And even from what I know, even the folks who come here for masters, they also get 5 years, right? But that's enough for them to do 2 years of masters and 3 years of OPT.
Yeah.
As a PhD student, that's not. So I renewed my visa early this year, and I was stuck in India because the passport just got delayed.
Yeah.
I called them and I was like, "Hey, where is? I've booked my flight. It's in 2 weeks. Where is the passport?" And they're like, "We don't care. You should not have booked the flight.
Yeah.
We'll give it on our own time." That was the response. So,
Like really
like you
scared,
feel
like
helpless.
yeah,
Yeah, you feel
really
helpless.
scared. Like I'm also visiting India. Like I came in fall 2022, so I'd be heading home this year. And I'm
Uh,
really scared. Like I'm heading home during December, and
yeah,
I need to come back in January. So I'm not sure how things would actually function at the holiday period because I've seen
yeah,
really nasty experiences of people this year that actually they had to sit extra 2 weeks in India
yeah.
because they did not
Same
get
for me.
passport.
Same
Yeah.
for me. I was giving my job interviews at that point, and I had interviews scheduled, assuming that I would be back in US, and I didn't want to like cancel them.
Yeah.
So those 2 weeks, I was literally on US time. I worked with my family was so supportive. I used to have dinner when they are having breakfast, and then we had different menus and stuff. I could not have done
I
without
know
them, but
it's
I
it's
was on
difficult.
PhD schedule from India. Yes.
Oh yeah, oh my God. PhD schedule is really
Yeah.
difficult to manage back from India. Yeah.
Almost opposite. Yeah, I did that for 2 weeks, but then the passport came in, so that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really difficult. Like I know it would have been a smoother process back in 2019. But just one question on your visa application. I know that every other detail goes about the same. But as a PhD student, I know like what we discussed that there is no such fees thing. So what are you actually like showing up in the finances section when you go for that visa interview? Like what is that, what you talk about?
Yeah, yeah. As a PhD student, that part is extremely easy because you say that, hey, I've got this I-20 from the university, and the I-20 says that, hey, we are paying total expenses for 1 year, 74K, and the university pays 74K for on the student $0. So it kind of shows explicitly that they will cover your finances, so you can just show that. But along with that, I think I showed some bank account statements that I have from working at Adobe for those 2 years, and I also showed connections to India. um, and you need to have all those
Yeah.
finances set up. Yeah.
That's for sure has to be there. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to touch upon that point that if anyone has that, thing like what do we because as master student, we usually show those finances section.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
double it up and show it that we could survive those many years. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's thanks for sharing
Kind
that.
of easier for PhD
Yeah, it's
students.
very easier. Like you would say, can you please check the I-20 and the note? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that works
Yeah.
perfectly for you folks.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming back, like usually the visa thing is like the biggest elephant of the room when we talk
Mhm.
about in the previous episodes with master's students because
Oh,
we
really?
show
Okay.
those things a lot, and then
Yeah.
people coming after COVID, it's a thing to get appointments and all those
Mm.
places and everything. So it's
Yeah.
really like tackling the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So moving ahead, I guess we are good to move from the college and the visa part. And obviously, we're done now. We're almost close to the finish line here of getting that degree done. So, first of all, I just wanted to like let the folks know from you as well, like because I just was skimming through your LinkedIn profile and I could see one of the internship back in Singapore. So I really want you to talk about your internship experiences and if any you gained during your PhD program as well. So
Mhm. Yeah. So, undergrad from 2013 to 2017, right? I went for one internship at the end of my second year during my undergrad. That was Singapore, where I was working as kind of a research intern at Center for Quantum Technologies in National University of Singapore. Don't ask me what I was working on. I don't remember
I would not
any of
understand
it.
as well.
You can ask me. You can ask me how good the city was. I loved it. It was a great experience. It did not matter how much work I accomplished. By the time I actually could understand what we are working on, the internship was over. So, but I would do it again just for Singapore, just for 3 months in Singapore. It was well paid, fully paid, and very comfortable, and I had a good time. Second year internships is mostly just to get a research experience, go into a different lab and see how it works out. And I applied. I think I just reached out through email or something to the professor who was leading that lab, and kind of worked out. And oh, also one of the seniors back then was working in that lab, so I think that helped in some cases. Next internship was Adobe Research, and that kind of get in through if you maintain a high CGPA. They give offers to top 5 students. I actually sat for a couple of interviews on campus for Microsoft and I think Goldman Sachs as well. I was like, no, 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 I'm not gonna take this offer directly. I will sit for internship interviews, Microsoft over the weekend. So this was a Saturday and Sunday. So Friday, Adobe gave me an offer, direct offer through the CGPA. They give it for like a few students, and then Saturday and Sunday I sat for interviews. I mean, no, no, no. Microsoft and Goldman Sachs, and both of them rejected me. And Sunday evening, I accepted Adobe as the place where I'm going,
that's
and it
completely
was
fine just to know the experience
yeah,
and
yeah,
to get
yeah, yeah,
experience.
and it was the best decision ever, actually. And from the kind of conversations that I've had, most of the internships are software engineer, where they kind of focus on a specific aspect. And the internship at Adobe in Bangalore was the research internship was actually very well structured, and it was an amazing experience. So much so that I fought almost fought with my family. My family had some awareness about masters in US, and at that point 2017 they were like, okay, apply for masters, go to US. And my brothers, his friends had done that, and they were like very happy and everything. Oh, masters, and doing great, having great jobs. My brother is like 3 years older, so they were like, okay, do this. But then I had to like fight with my family that hey, Adobe has given me a full-time offer and I would join them. I don't care. So and I was there for 2 years, and Adobe was kind of like a master's for me. Usually people use masters as a way to decide whether they want to do a PhD or not. And so those 2 years were like we were deciding. Most of the people uh, so during Adobe, like during that time, they hire junior associates, BTech graduates who work with senior researchers at that point. And most of the folks, they kind of tend to decide on higher studies that what they want to do, either master's or PhD. I applied mostly for a PhD. And it's kind of very common to do in that setup. And then after joining PhD, my first internship was with Amazon, and that was the team sits in Sunnyvale. It was very close to kind of what I was involved with at USC in building dialogue systems. It's kind of the space like conversational assistants. I was working in the Alexa team there, and the goal was to kind of was very interesting actually. Build more natural, how to have more natural conversations with Alexa in the future when an assistant is a part of a multi-party meeting setup. So it was very interesting. Um, and the second one, actually, I should also talk about this, might be helpful. So so for the for research internships, usually the goal is to kind of get a good research experience, but also try and publish some of that work in some conference. You pick a problem which is kind of doable. Usually, it's not you won't be able to finish the thing in 3 months. So you try to keep working on it after the internship, and you try to publish it with the team. That's the goal. It did not work out with Amazon, and I want to talk about that because I think the core reason for that was there was a less of a so the problem that we picked up was not central to the agendas of the team that was like my mentors at Amazon. And so I think there was a lesser support from the team. It was as if I am just working on something myself on a weekend apart from my PhD work when I was back after the internship. So that just did not scale up. And my next internship was with Google in New York City. By the way, the first one was during COVID. The team sits at Sunnyvale, but it was remote from Los Angeles. Um, and The second one was Google NYC, and that was in person 2022, summer 2022. And then again, working in something similar, dialogue systems. And I got a great support from the team even after the internship. Very good experience, of course. And I was actually also a part-time employee at Google just so that I can get like in the fall semester after my summer internship, so that I can that's something which is a possibility, so that I can get access to the internal resources and I can like finish the work. And there was good support from the team, and then we ended up actually publishing that work later on. Yeah, good experiences. I only wanted to intern in the industry. I don't think I even like explored interning in some research lab. Uh, for the years when I was not interning anywhere, uh, I was at my lab at USC, and we have some program where we host undergrad interns from other universities uh, in the US. So I was mentoring those interns and doing a couple of research projects that are like aligned with my PhD. So that's a good opportunity, and may not happen in all the cases, but we used to have those interns come in and we can mentor them and work with them. And also, as far as the stipend is considered, you the stipend that you get usually in the fall or spring semesters, that I think is 50% RShip, that's called. But in the summer, you can do 100% RShip, so you get twice the stipend, even if you just stay in your lab at USC. So I'm not sure how it works in other universities, but this was how it worked in our case. So, but yeah, good experiences. I wish I'd like maybe gotten more chances. One in the last year, 2023, I did not go out for internship. The thought process there was that I was actually trying for some internship, but they were like so far from what I was doing at USC. So, and the job market was tricky, layoffs happening, everything. And people who, even if you have an internship, and there was no guarantee for a conversion offer and stuff after the internship, the things were very uncertain. So it would be like I am giving these 3 months with the company, and it's very likely that I won't even get an offer afterwards. And the work that I'm doing is also not like helping me make any progress in a PhD. So it just did not make sense to do that. Instead, I stayed in my lab, mentored some students. I had a meeting with my advisors before the summer that, hey, what projects can we do so that I can get out of here quickly? And we focused on those projects in the summer, and kind of
Yeah,
worked
and I
out.
guess 2023 was majorly, for you, like obviously the job market was thin, but also to, cover up with your, like, uh, I'm just skipping on that term, but, more of your write-up that you're all ready to, submit.
Mhm.
I'm just missing out on that
Like
word.
the dissertation, you mean?
Dissertation, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, it's more of, focusing on those things as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, so right after summer, I did my thesis proposal. That's like the stage before your thesis defense. Thesis proposal is like you say, I've done this work in these last 4 years, and these one or two projects are remaining. I'll do this and then I'll get out of here. Are you okay with that? You say that in a 45-minute presentation to a committee of five professors, 4 or 5,
Mhm.
and they were okay with it. So you give it the next year. You try to just finish those projects and do your defense. So it kind of worked out. I used the project that I started in the summer for my proposal, and worked out in that sense. Yeah.
So, that there was amazing, like a platter of internships that you have done with amazing companies, and a lot of experience has been gained from there. So, because we've touched base a little bit on the job market as well, and I know you are employed now, you would be starting soon in a month. But how was your job experience, with the market and with the market now and last year? How was your experience with that? And with you being part of Capital One from next month, like next to next month, how was your
Yeah.
experience with that?
Yeah, yeah. So things were still tricky early this year, although things are getting better, but still tricky. Less in many cases, they're very weird situations. Like in some cases, um, either they need somebody right now, so just join tomorrow, immediate, because they have all the push from large language models, ChatGPT, and how they're doing this kind of scaling up their teams. We want you to join tomorrow, but that just doesn't work for me. Like I have my defense to do. I have to write my dissertation. I didn't even start on that till that point, and so that mentality that right away join right away, that didn't work. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there were some teams who were like, okay, if we have a hiring freeze. So I actually reached out to my mentors from those internships, and it's uh, mostly comes down to networking, as we discussed, right? So I reached out to those mentors, and either there was a hiring freeze or no options, and that specific team is not hiring. So it was a struggle because where you worked, that's your core kind of connection, but that didn't work out. So the primary thing that I had to do was expand the scope of companies that I'm looking for, and for Capital One, this was also through a referral from some professor at USC. There's someone who used to lead a lab at USC, like a big lab with many smaller subgroups at USC, and he moved to Amazon, and then he moved to Capital One. So he's at Capital One leading that AI group, which I'm joining now. So some connections there, although I never talked to that person, but I think that's how that I feel got in. But yeah, so it's through the network that you try to exploit when the market situation is tricky, and you expand your scope. That hey, okay, not just the core tech companies, but there are options in other cases as well. There are other industries that are more stable. Capital One is one unique case where um, building those huge AI systems is kind of not as central to their business as for these other tech companies, but still there's something they want to incorporate. Uh, so that's the kind of team that I'm joining. So they still had opportunities. They were trying to build their team for build their research team. It's kind of I'm expecting to work at again at the intersection of research and some product. similar to Adobe, but let's see how it works out this time. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds all really interesting. I would not go up to those sections. Like, obviously, the role does align with your curriculum that you have
Mhm.
talked over for the
Mhm.
past 1 hour. I know it
Yeah.
really aligns. And you also mentioned that, it does not aligns to their main product line and main services that they do, but it's something more on the research side where you can build up something.
Yeah, so the just to add on to it, just so
Yeah.
the team that I'm joining, they are trying to use these large language models to improve their products, but it's still, I think, they have an established line. They're not competing right in that domain. So I think it's a good space to be in.
Yeah, I
Still.
agree. I agree. So
Um,
that basically covers a lot of, like, I guess, every aspect of 5 years of your life. And uh, with you talking about the application process, the journey, and how networking helped you with all these things, and then job
yeah.
market was thin, but you somehow made it as well, and made it from LA to NYC now. So that's like a great switch from West Coast to East Coast. But
Let's see.
lastly, we would like, I would really wanted to end it on a good note with you. Like, if you could share it with the incoming international folks who are making up or planning up for doctorate degrees in
Huh?
USC. So any
Uh-huh.
last advices being part of the podcast that you want to give out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as far as PhD admits are considered, um, once you get like the initial process can be very random. There can be so many additional factors that decide who gets the admit. It might not be personal. So you just apply broadly. So it's possible. One very concrete example is let's say you apply. You sitting in India, you think that, oh, this professor looks great, matches perfectly with my profile, and you like spend hours studying their papers, and then you apply and mention their name, expecting for them to like get back, but then you don't know on the back end. There's somebody who worked on an internship with them. There was some USC student or somebody else who they actually worked with, and they are just going to give that position to that person. The position may not even be open for you back in India. So there's like, it's hard to even know these things because professors don't have the time to reply to your emails and all that unless you really catch their eye with some tricks. I don't know, ask ChatGPT. But I feel the process is very random. So you apply broadly and you see what happens. That's one thing. And try to, when you get the admit, try to assess if you have options. We don't have the option, great. You're just going there. If you have an option, try to assess the lab environment. That matters a lot apart from the research overlap. And for research overlap, I think when you're applying and also once you get the admit, it's good to see just look at the exact papers, that not just what they have said on the website, not just what they mentioned on the website, but look at exact papers and ask yourself if you're willing to publish similar papers in the future. So I think that's an advice that I got a long time back, and that's really can give you a concrete piece of knowledge about how the lab functions. Um, Along with that, advice, what else comes to mind? I guess PhD is something, as I mentioned, like it's a longer term commitment. So don't take, you really need to like it. Just want to reiterate that point and try to maintain a good work life balance just so that it is scalable, and also like engage with the local community. So it's there is a lot of things that I've seen in many cases. People just only interact with folks from their own culture, but I think you can miss out on a lot of the exposure. There are positives which you can take in from people from other parts of the world, and it ultimately also like broadens your mindset. Like I've like during COVID, for instance, like I've over here I've joined organizations at USC where I was working, where I was like interacting with people from all over the world, um, celebrating their festivals and stuff with them. And I've seen during COVID some of the folks in India being racist towards Chinese, for instance. And that is something that just doesn't come from you because you're celebrating Chinese New Year with them. It's kind of it kind of broadens your, gives you that exposure from different cultures. So I think that's something which is unique to US, and you should take that
Yeah,
opportunity.
it is full of diversity. And
Yes.
um like like coming from India, like, we are not exposed to a lot of diversities when we sit
Yeah.
down in class. But here I was exposed to a lot of folks from different countries, different
Yeah.
cultures. And it was really enlightening for me to learn from them, from their experiences, knowing their cultures, their festivals,
Yeah.
telling mine, and all of that together into one land that is US. So that was like
Yeah.
the best part, to actually interact with folks. And that's how you
Exactly.
actually know about folks, that okay, that's this, that's that, or this happens, that happens. So, and
Same.
somehow you get to know the lingos as well. I know that's really fun. So,
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's like, I think I'm not saying to like forget where you're coming from and stuff. Be grounded, but there's still a lot to learn. Even like simple things as registries during weddings. I love that concept. And also there is something called meal trains. Are you aware of that? So when let's say, are you aware of that?
I guess I've heard it, but
Yeah.
not
It's like,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
so basically, some of my friends had their kids recently, and like last few years, and there's a concept of meal trains where everybody, like the family, is already going through a lot. There's a lot for them to do, rather than disturbing them coming to their home. Everybody like signs up for meals. They would prepare meals, and for the next 2 weeks, they say, okay, Tuesday lunch from my side. I would prepare something and drop it to your place. Or I'll like, if you can't be there in person, yeah, like for Friday evening dinner on me, $30, a DoorDash from my side, a gift card from my side, and stuff like that. So people, like, these are very nice things to adopt. Actually, I think
Mhm.
there's a lot to learn from other cultures, which we should not lose out on. Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, everyone just learn cooking as well, because it's you who cook for yourself. Nobody else will come down and cook for
Yeah,
you.
like I can give a very nice anecdote here. Like early on, my mother, like I had never cooked back in India. Like even
Same here. Yeah.
At Adobe, like we used to get food like in the office, and we
India
used
is
to
usually
order
there, like
on the
you
weekends.
you get food in your offices, like
Yeah,
it's there. Yeah.
and then I used to order on the weekends, right? Over here, my mom gave me a spoon, okay, and then the same spoon. My mom had some spoon, and she gave me the same spoon, so that we used to say, okay, one and a half or one of
I
salt
have
and
same. Oh my God. So when I got that spice box back from India, so
yeah,
wherever, like, because I used to get like recipes on WhatsApps, okay, so put this step 2, step 4, step 5. So
yeah,
it's everywhere written half tablespoon or 1 tablespoon.
yeah,
So she's given me that exact size. Like,
yeah,
just if this one full you put it, that is 1 tablespoon,
yeah,
done and
yeah.
done. So yeah, I am in the same boat.
Yeah, and then there is this transition. Like now, I feel that if you're like measuring how much salt would go in, that's a defeat. You should just like use your
Pinch of
hands.
salt, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You can
And
never, like, at times things go right with it, at times it doesn't, but it's
yeah,
okay. It's fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love cooking, but I want to cook for like as a luxury,
Yeah.
not as a
It's more of
necessity.
survival.
Yeah,
Definitely.
not as a necessity,
Yeah.
but I like, I've been through phases. I've gone through like there was a phase where I was just taking meal kits from a restaurant, from a local Indian restaurant,
Hmm.
and uh, right now I'm in like, okay, let's focus on the fitness and everything. But when you're like taking food from outside, you cannot control what you're getting in. So I cook mostly in the meal prep phase right now, where I try
Same
to
here.
cook a batch.
Still,
So
I like it's been 6 months working after the student
nice,
life. Still
nice.
the meal prep thing because I can't get that student life and the student rules, everything go off my life. It's still like Saturday, Sundays are like prepping up for the week.
Yeah,
So that's there. It will eventually go, I guess, when I'd be more, it's just you don't get the liberty of time when you start working. So you think it would, but yeah, that's all in the back seat now. Anyways, you have to cook and you have to clean and you have to work. That's what
yeah.
life cycle has
Yeah,
become.
it's good to like engage because, and also like there's a lot of support.
Mhm.
There are other friends who have done this stuff like before you. I'm very fortunate. I have a huge network now from IIT Guwahati, who many of them have moved to US or in like uh, and then mostly in Bay Area or they keep like now I'm going for camping like next week and I had people to talk to. I just had calls and then they know all the Indian tricks for like get ready to eat poha and just add water, warm water to it and
Yeah.
it's all it's crazy, yeah. So
You get
yeah, there
everything
are
here.
people to talk to. I guess one advice is to like build a good network and stay
Hmm.
in touch with them. And people have
They're your only family here, actually, like apart from
yeah,
family.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but yeah. But with that being said, we've shared like a lot of nooks here about and having a PhD student in reality who would be graduating soon. And I hope this helps everyone. This really has helped me a lot. And if I somewhere down the line pick up USC, you are still my go-to person in the future anytime. So
So all the best.
it was yeah, it was really fortunate to have you here and share all those details, which we would have not gotten on the website or anything of that sort. Coming down from a student itself is really fortunate. So I
Mhm.
really want to thank you for making out this time and sharing all these details. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It was fun and good luck with the podcast moving
Yeah,
forward. Yeah.
thank you, and thanks everyone, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes as well. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Off the Record, a student abroad podcast with Saman Fatima, part of the ITSP Magazine podcast network. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player, subscribe to the ITSP Magazine YouTube channel, and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to connect your brand to our conversations and our audience, visit itspmagazine.com to learn how to sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.